What's up, guys? Today we're going to cover Unit 3, National Income and Price Determination, Topic 3.6, which is changes in the ADAS model in the short run. All right, so just wanted to remind you guys about the shifters for AD, A, and AS. So shifters for AD are going to be a change in anything in our GDP equation, right? So an increase or a decrease, right? An increase is going to shift our AD curve to the right, a decrease will shift it to the left. So a change in consumer spending, a change in investment spending, a change in government spending, or a change in net exports. Now, our AS curve will be, again, RAP, which is a change in resource prices, a change in actions of the government, except for government spending, right? Because that's obviously included in aggregate demand, and then a change in productivity. All right, so here we have our ADAS model, right? We have our aggregate demand curve, our aggregate supply curve, our long-run aggregate supply curve representing full employment, right? And then we have on our horizontal axis, we have GDP. On our vertical axis, we have price levels, okay? Make sure that everything is labeled correctly, right? Now, we want to go over the supply shocks. So an example here is if, we get a lot of oil internally, right? But some oil that we get is from the OPEC countries, right? So let's imagine that something happens to these OPEC countries, like, for example, they're sending all their oil over to the United States and, the tankers go down, right, losing all of the million barrels of oil that come over to the United States. Well, that would result in a negative supply shock. So what would shift here is our aggregate supply curve, right? So our aggregate supply curve is then going to shift, right, to the left, right? Now, shifting it to the left would increase prices, right? And then it would also decrease quantity, right? And so, you know what, let me draw that original curve on there. AS2, right? So this was our original equilibrium point, and then this is our new equilibrium point, right? You can see that price levels have increased and quantity has decreased. And so, which is weird because we're in a recessionary gap, right? So when we're in a recessionary gap, not a lot of people are working, so for producers to sell things, they need to lower their prices, right? Well, in this case, not a lot of people are working, but prices are going up. And what that's referred to as is stagflation, right? You have a stagnant economy, and with that, you have inflation. So, again, which is very peculiar because you have, high unemployment occurring, right? But, nonetheless, we still refer to this as a recessionary gap, okay? And it's happened before, right? We've seen this occur in our economy before, specifically the 70s. It occurred and with gas prices, right? So now, let's then look at some other things that could happen, right, in our economy. If we were to increase consumer spending, right, consumer spending being a shifter for aggregate demand, we would shift it to the right, okay? Remember to keep labeling these. And what would happen to price levels? Price levels would increase and quantities would increase as well, right? What I also wanted to cover was demand pull inflation and cost push inflation. So if we were to increase aggregate demand, right, like we did right here, we see that price levels increase and quantity increase. Now, demand pull inflation is inflation caused by demand, right? So you have essentially too many dollars chasing too few goods. So that bids up the price, right? So people are starting to buy a lot of that good, right? And there's not a lot of that good to go around, right? So consumers will pay more for that good. Think of, currently toilet paper, right? Like people are buying up all the toilet paper, right? So now producers can start to increase the price of toilet paper because consumers are going to start getting more and more competitive with purchasing toilet paper. So they'll pay more for that product, right? And so, of course, this is all during the COVID pandemic going on, right? So demand pulls prices up. Consumers want the goods and services, so they would compete against each other with their dollar, right, for that goods and service. Now, cost push inflation, right? That's going to see a decrease in our long run aggregate supply curve, right? That would be something like this, causing stagflation, right? AS2, okay? And then you could see, again, price levels have increased, right? So a negative supply shock increases the cost of production and forces producers to increase prices, right? And so that's going to be it for us today. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you.